Welcome one, welcome all, welcome to another exciting episode of Hearts of Iron 4. Yeah, I haven't done a Hearts of Iron 4 stream in a very long time, but I decided to try it out again. Playing with a mod called Hearts of Oak. We're going to get into what exactly that mod does, but before I do that, let's talk about some of the other mods that I'm running here. Most of them are graphical improvements this way, that. Just going to make a few recommendations for you if you want. Quam's graphics mod. Huge fan of this one. I really like the way it presents the map, and the terrain is very easy to see and read and understand. The Hoi 4 UI Overhaul, of course, I'm using the compatibility one because the default version doesn't work well with any mods that change the national focuses, basically. It's been tailor-made for those focuses, so I'm using the compatibility version. Colored buttons, alternative airbase icons, alternative naval icons, these are all very helpful. Well, the colored buttons are just kind of fancy, but the alternative base icon colors, for me, make it much easier to tell what bases are and are not occupied. I know technically you can do that already, but I just like the way that these colors pop on the screen. They just contrast very well and make it easy to see what's going on. The other one that I think is super valuable is this colored Air Force one, which basically colors all fighters red, all tactical bombers are, I think, purple, and all strategic bombers are yellow. Or no, they're light blue. I'm sorry. Naval bombers are yellow, maybe? I don't know. I'll have to double check. Oh, naval bombers are blue here, and then your CAS are green, like this, etc. So that makes it much easier to parse when you're looking at what you have for fighter groups, which one, or which for air groups, which one you want to click on to assign to a different place. So I'm a big fan of that. You can see it makes it easier to understand exactly what you have stationed where, because the colors are just right there in your face. And similarly, I have colored ship icons. I think these are all basically by the same person, and they are real nice. Your battleships are orange, your cruisers are yellow, your destroyers are blue, your light cruisers are green, and your carriers are red. It makes it very simple to parse what you're seeing instead of trying to read the little letter and understand what that, or try to figure out the silhouette. So I'm a big fan of the way that these are set up. Now to some of the ones that are a little bit less about graphical improvements. I think there's really only one or two. So Z's balanced ship refitting. I'm a big fan of this one. When they changed the way that ship construction works in the naval, the Man the Guns DLC, one of the things that kind of was terrible is that you would get these ridiculously long refit times for simple things that should have been easy to change. We all agree that changing out the engine on a battleship is a massive endeavor that would take almost as long as building the battleship itself. That's fine. In the game, it's actually a little too long, even for some realistic things. But stupid stuff like adding a radar, changing out the gun turret that's right on top, those shouldn't take years to accomplish. So this mod attempts to try to fix that issue by reducing the costs to a more realistic level. It still doesn't allow you to instantly refit all your stuff however you want, but it does make it far less punishing. So you can see here, for example, this light cruiser got an extra deck gun, it got extra armor added onto it, they changed out a couple of things on the main turrets, and they upgraded the anti-aircraft and added a radar. In the past, that would have taken 55 days per light cruiser that you wanted to make those upgrades. In this one, it takes 35 days, so it cuts it down a little bit. And, you know, a lot of these just make sense that they shouldn't quite take that long. And you can read the details here if you wanted to go into it, but I like this a lot. Because otherwise I never ever use the refit button. It's just useless to me, and I don't like that. I prefer to have that control. So then the last one is the almost no division experience design, because I like tinkering with my designs, and I hate being like, oh, I really like that design. Oh, I can't hit the save button until I get a certain amount of XP. Like, I want to mess around in this window and see how changes apply, but I can't do it, and it's annoying, so I'm going to get rid of that thing, and it also helps the AI a little bit. They don't have to spend the XP to change their designs, which helps them a little bit. So it only costs 1 instead. So let's pop back into the game itself, and we'll talk a little bit more about Hearts of Oak. I mean, I can show you the actual... Where the heck did it go? No. Did I minimize it? Yeah. I can actually show you the Hearts of Oak page, but there's not much to it. That's a problem, and a real criticism I have of this mod. It gives you some general overview about what the mod does. Reworked combat mechanics. Okay, how did you rework them? Pfft, screw hell if I know. Doesn't tell you. There's nowhere here it tells you. There's nowhere here it tells you. There's no comprehensive changelog except what's posted in the Discord, which is a changelog from the previous version of Hearts of Oak. It doesn't tell you what's going on that's different from vanilla. So you kind of just have to experiment and play around, which I have already done. And I liked it, which is why I'm featuring it here. So let's jump in. They have 2 scenarios, one for multiplayer and one for single player. I don't actually know the difference, except that apparently this book rock removes all neutral and useless countries from the map. So I guess that helps avoid performance issues with the mod. But we're going to play the single player Gathering Storm scenario. Starts 36, as you would expect. Hello, Mark Flint. The Unity of Command stream from the other day had some issues, and I don't know what, but it kept crashing my computer. So I gave up on it. I just complete blue screen of death, and I do not know. That had not happened when I was doing Unity of Command prior to reinstalling Windows, so it seems like there's some weird issue. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and play with Japan here, because I have been learning a lot about the Pacific War, thanks to Dan Carlin's Hardcore History podcast, where he's doing Supernova in the East, basically a mini audiobook in podcast form. Once every 3 or 4 months, we get a big 2-3 hour drop of a cool history exploration. And I have also been reading Empire of the Sun, board game rules, Pacific War, designed by Mark Herman. So we're going to go in at, you're not going to crank up the difficulty or anything crazy. This mod works best with historical AI focuses on, so even though I normally don't do that, that's what we're going to do. So I'll see if I can solve that problem with Unity of Command, and I assume it's with streaming, but no promises. We'll see. All right, so here we are. You can already see Quam's map is really easily able to tell the difference between flat terrain, which is this plain flat green, that's plains, hilly terrain, which gets a little bit of bumps there, and the more mountainous terrain, obviously, is mountain terrain. And then if we were to go on mainland China, you can see a lot more differences. The city terrain, actually, I'm sorry, that's plains. That's just, oh, you know what? That is the high number of slots, I think is what that is. That's the city terrain. So you can see that here. So this farm-looking terrain is basically the same as regular terrain. And if we go further south, you can see forested terrain. Very easily pops out of there. And the difference between hills and forests is pretty clear because they got the little 3D trees there. Let's see if we can find some jungle. Down here, is jungle a different thing, or is it just considered forest? Kind of... Does High 4 not deal with jungle as a separate terrain type from forest? I never really played around in the Pacific very much, but I assumed that it would, but I guess it just calls it forest. There's jungle. Okay, jungle is slightly different. And how is it Vietnam is all covered in forest and not jungle? That's kind of weird, right? I don't know if it's like that in Vanilla 4. But here's the jungle terrain. That looks a little bit different. Then you got the desert or the drylands. I think if you look at Spain, usually has a good example of drylands, is the lighter green here. Oh, maybe not. I guess it's this. Here it is. No, that's mountains. Anyway, as I show off what I don't know about this mod, let's go ahead and learn more about what I do know. So, there is some details about the mod in this mod guide. So the first thing it's going to tell us about is production. It says that everything is both more expensive and requires more resources. However, combat losses are still high, so make sure not to waste equipment. It tries to make attrition mean something, like, oh, maybe I shouldn't attack in the middle of winter. Instead, I should wait for spring, or wait for mud to clear. Many battalions require 2 types of equipment. Not having enough will have a negative impact on your division. And he points out many mods that add extra equipment don't actually give statistics to it, so it doesn't do anything. Hello, Bolt Simmons. Oh, you had your business account on there. And the number of factories is much higher, which allows you to distribute them more accurately in production. I actually really like this, and you may have noticed that before, where China has these areas where it's like, oh, 13 of 50 slots unlocked. And we can go back to our area, 40 of 50 slots. Yes, they have massively increased the factories, but they've also massively increased the requirements and lowered the speed. So constructing a civilian factory doesn't take 7,000, it takes 10,000. And civilian factories don't produce 5 production factory points, they produce 3. So it's this balanced form of trying to increase the discrete differences between adding 1 factory or adding 2 factories. So that is a little bit more interesting, and it shines more in the production window, where I find I actually have enough room for a bunch of different types of equipment. Even in the base game, if I wanted to produce naval bombers and carrier naval bombers and fighters and carrier naval fighters and CAS and carrier CAS, and you just have so many lines that you don't have enough factories for them. And so I'd have lines with just 1 factory in it, producing stuff that came out very slowly. In this, you're going to have a bunch of factories that are going to have 2, 3, 4, maybe 5, and that's going to be producing slowly. And you'll have your other lines that have 15 or 17 or 20 factories that are producing the amount that you actually want at a higher priority. So it allows you a little bit more discrete differences in how you prioritize things. So let's... can be picked as many times as you want. Well, apparently I can't. So we'll go back to that in a second. Once we get... maybe we just roll it for a day. Did that do it? We let it go for an hour? Anyway, I'm familiar with most of the other changes. I just wanted to go through and look at them. Anyway, let's go over... I do like the political view, by the way, of this Qualms mod. So let's start by doing the things we have to do. This is a very different national focus tree from vanilla. It doesn't have the unthinkable option because, again, remember, this mod is designed to work on a historical level. So it gets rid of a lot of the non-historical stuff, and it tries to create more interesting decisions within the historical context, which is not something I normally like, but we're going to give it a try because I do like a lot of the changes that this mod has made so far. Number 1, the Manchurian Project. I think there's a thing basically like this in vanilla, but in this one, you actually get to annex Manchukuo and Menkuko, but you can only do that if you control huge chunks of China. So once you've grabbed most of China, specifically Qinghai, Sichuan, Shaanxi, Shanghai, or Nanjing, either those areas have to be under your control or they're in a faction with you, so they could be your puppet, for example. Then you annex Manchuria. So that's a cool little element at the end of this tree. And not only that, while it does give things to the Manchurian areas, like your puppet gets military factories here, civilian factories here, and then it gets a bunch of building slots and other things, the early parts of this are actually giving factories to Japan. This goes to East Hebei, which is a piece that Japan holds in China. This adds to Laotung. That might actually be in China itself. How the hell did I spell that? I can't. Liao. Okay. Yes, that is a piece inside Manchuria, Menkuko itself. So it looks like once you get past the first 2, these two and this one all get, well, actually this one gives Manchuria stuff, but these two give Japan things directly. So you want to get these three pretty early, and if you want your ally, your puppet, to do well, you can get these three as well. That will help them. This gives them from some infrastructure, which actually kind of helps you a little bit if you're going to be fighting in China. Sometimes that infrastructure helps. And this one removes banditry from your puppet, making them more effective. And this one gives them some building slots, civilian slots, so that makes them more effective as well. It may be providing you some troops that can go on the border with the Soviet Union, something like that. And then these are directly improving them. Now, other trees here. It's an interesting situation because the game won't let you go with the army faction of Japan and go strike north, which is interesting because this is one of the only mods that actually, let's see if this, there we go. This is one of the only mods that actually puts a bunch of resources up here. I don't think this is vanilla. I know that this might be vanilla, but I think a lot of these other ones are not. Like the extra steel and stuff is not. So, this does not let you use the Strike North, go with the army faction option because it's a historical variant. So purge the Kadoha faction is the only option. So we have to eliminate them. And what this winds up doing is crippling your generals. It reduces your general's experience value by 75% because you basically purged the army of the people that were going to try to go north and try to start a war with Russia. The way to get rid of that is by invading China. And I think it's this. This removes the Kwantung army veto. That's the one. So once you get past the Marco Polo incident, and this one, let's see. This focus will cancel if the requirements are not met. This one it's following bypasses, has completed Eastern security. Oh, so this option only becomes available if the Soviet Union has not completed Eastern security. I haven't actually looked in the Soviet Union tree yet, but it is also very different. Let's see if we can use this. Eastern security, there it is. It can't be done until January 1st, 1939. So if we do our tree early enough, we get to go, after we fight a limited war with China and sign a ceasefire to get control of the coastal areas, we can then go north into the Soviet Union if we wish. That's a possible option. That's sort of a possible ahistorical decision that we could make. But if they get to this first, they build a bunch of forts on the border, and we don't get the option to do that anymore, at least not for free through the focus trees. So that's something we have to consider. If we can complete the strike the USSR while they are weak, then we will get the option to do it before they can fortify the eastern border. Now that is weird, right? If we complete strike the USSR while they are weak, then they can't build these free forts? I guess because strike the USSR immediately starts a war. That's probably why. Anyway, back to us. So we talked about how... so this is starts the China War. If we manage to... Now, the other thing here that's a little bit confusing with this mod, when we start the China War, we get huge penalties to attack with China. And what I've been told is that that's because the war in China, historically, the Marco Polo Bridge incident, was sparked by members of the army trying to start a war for which Japan had not yet been preparing, or was not yet prepared. So what that means is we get these huge penalties to our ability to fight in China. Now, we're still probably going to be superior, but we'll get a decision to escalate this war. Instead of making it this sort of border skirmish where we're not very effective, we could make it something that's actually part of our priority. If we do that decision, then we'll start removing these penalties as we get more and more prepared to actually fight this war while we're in the middle of fighting it. If we take certain cities, then we will be able to reduce its effectiveness more quickly. So we'll get to that when we get to it, but that's one piece of this. So the army expansion, this is all bonuses for the army that eventually starts us fighting the Marco Polo Bridge incident. What's also interesting is you've got both options available. A new approach, which takes you down the path of getting armored forces, and the old guard, which keeps you on grand battle plan and gives you extra basic infantry equipment. So what's interesting is none of this is mutually exclusive. You seem to be able to get all of this stuff. And I think tank production focus is going to be one of the continuous focuses that you can get down here. Damn, scroll doesn't work when you get here. So invest in research just gives you a flat 5% increase to your research. That's a new thing on the mod, I think. Anyway, so we've got all of these army-based improvements here that eventually end with potentially going to war with the USSR, or this usually ends with a ceasefire in China, which we could then try to go for a full-on war with them later. This is all about our own improvement. This is improving internal infrastructure, improving research, getting... There's a small fighter tree in here. So this is all Army, this is all Navy, and there's a small fighter tree in the middle. This is also how we would go to war against the South. The South Doctrine. This is the official one. This is the one we do later, but you can't pick it unless you've cheated on the London Naval Treaty or abandoned the London Naval Treaty. So, as long as you have the London Naval Treaty, you can't pick this. And it sucks, because you get 4 dockyards out of it, and then you can get even more dockyard improvements and experience gain for various things. There's a lot of good stuff in this tree. But in order to do so, you got to treat on the London Naval Treaty. Now, I don't think there's any downside to cheating. I think it just costs you some manpower or some political power when you first do it. Southern Indochina needs to be owned by Japan. Laos, all those areas need to be owned by Japan, and then we can get an alliance with Siam. Which kind of suggests you need to demand Indochina first and get it somehow. So then there's more possible improvements, adding dockyards, infrastructure, getting a special type of naval designer. And these are 2 designers that are opposite each other. This one is a battle fleet designer. This one is the Pacific Fleet designer. Those are only available when we go down this tree. Okay, so we're done kind of looking at this. Let's pick one. So I like getting these free 6 civilian factories early on. I'm going to take the Manchurian tree. The main thing this does is we gain a captain of industry available as a political advisor, which is quite valuable early in the game because I'm going to try to be building up some civilian factories for the first little bit. And it also gives Manchukuo some base stability and political power and stuff. Now, us getting political power, I think, comes from this. That also increases our stability a little bit. So maybe we start there. We're going to purge the Kadoha faction that wants to strike north in the Soviet Union. Alright, so that's done. Now let's take a look at the tech differences in this mod. So industry is not too dissimilar, but you can see there's actually 2 different things coming off of production. This is what used to come off production, is the 2 options, concentrated versus dispersed industry. The other thing that this does is the branch condensed concentrated industry increases civilian factory construction speed, and this one increases military factory construction speed. So that's another subtle difference between these two. If you want to build up really quickly, really fast on military factories, you go down this line. If you're looking more towards the long term, getting civilian factories, this can be a good line to go down. And then this one has been split up into production efficiency cap increases and production efficiency retention and growth increases. Finally, we have a new thing, quality management, which is split into something that improves the effectiveness of your army forces at the cost of making them more expensive. or you can reduce the effectiveness of your army forces while making them less expensive. And then we've got synthetics, which is basically the same thing, slightly rearranged to where you don't get a lot of extra fuel from fuel refining anymore. If you recall, the fuel gain from refineries is all built at the end of this tree, it looks like. It used to be spread throughout earlier, but now it's all at the end. And this only goes 10% from per oil and per refinery. So that's pretty weak sauce, but I think they might have increased it overall. So the other thing is that we have here excavation, same as before, gives you access to the various decisions that can increase your options. We're going to go with concentrated industry because I do like getting the civilian factories, and they are very expensive. This one will help. Now, this one is 37, so we'll probably hold off on that for a little bit. Let's go back in and check out this tree, because this is another big difference in this mod compared to base Hearts of Iron 4. We're going to go with the research speed for sure, but before we do that, let's take a look. We've got radio already researched for Japan, but we've got this. Support company radios. Radio equipment is a new type of equipment that you are constructing. And at the beginning of the game, I don't think anybody requires radio equipment. If I'm not mistaken, it goes completely unused. Or maybe it's used by maybe the HQ division or something like that, or the HQ support company. But when you research this one, all support battalions will now require radios in order to work effectively, but their organization and recovery rate increase because they have the radios. And here, all of your infantry, all of the support companies, recon companies specifically, get significant improvements, but now they require radios. So this is interesting because this says all support battalions, and this says, the affected battalions will require radios. The affected units will require 1 radio set per battalion. This requires 2 radio sets per battalion. So your recon companies will then require 3 sets, I guess. I don't know exactly how that works, but maybe this is all other support companies that's not recon. And then this is goes down to vehicle radios, which give your vehicles improvements, but now they require equipment. And this gives your infantry improvements, but now they require equipment. Artillery radios improves your artillery. Tank radios improves your tanks. Planes radios improves your planes. So all of this, if you have the manufacturing, can improve the quality and power of your various forces in the Army and Air Force, but at the cost of additional equipment. So you have to make sure you have the equipment to cover it in order to really get the benefit of it. And these are just regular radars, and then night fighters can improve the effectiveness of your night fighting, etc. And these are, as we've seen before, just the regular research speed improvements, and then the fire control systems and the radar you get just like regular radar. So those are all normal. Air doctrines are, I think, basically the same as they've always been, but they may have been tweaked. Like, for example, here, you need plane radios in order to get to this point. You cannot research these until you've got planes radios researched. So there are certain gates in the doctrine trees now, not in the naval one, but the naval one has so much for you to research. But the land one also has, you need vehicle tank radios in mobile warfare if you want to get to this point. You need support radios in order to get to this point. You need vehicle on the left or infantry radios on the right to get to this point. And the least technologically important one as all, mass assault doctrine needs 1 million men in the field to get to the human wave offensive. So these have some brakes on them, essentially. I am glad that they got rid of this weird, like, the desperate defense one they called, that just gave them a bunch of free recruitment. That made no sense to me in the past. Anyway, so we look at that. We've got, here's the air tree. The air tree is pretty much, not too dissimilar. Light fighters are the same as they were. Heavy fighters are the same as they were. Close air support, naval bombers, tactical bombers, strategic bombers. But here's the interesting thing. These are gated both behind 1938, but also behind machine tools. So improved machine tools is actually this right here. You need that before you can get this part of the tree. And you've also got some extra improvements. So aluminum airframe increases your agility. Drop tanks increases your range, so planes actually become better if you have the ability to invest in these specific technologies here. And then this one is plane cannons, and increases their air attack, improved ammunition. Then it looks like you can get ground attack and strategic bombing bonuses here and there. So this is mostly the same, but here's an interesting thing. The Japanese do not get heavy tanks. These are their light tanks, and these are their heavy tanks. And it looks like the tree's a little bit messed up, but anyway. These are their light tanks, and these are their medium tanks. They don't get heavy tanks, which is very interesting. I'm guessing that, the other countries that normally would get heavy tanks would have access to them. Germany and Japan and Soviet Union, and maybe UK. I'm not sure. Churchill probably counts. So they have actually taken out some technologies from specific powers, I believe. Or maybe they just don't have heavy tanks in here at all, just for the hell of it. So we've also got armored cars, of course, and we've got your mechanized armored cars. Well, yeah, that's right. It looks like it's a little bit off here. Motorized transport is here. Armored cars is here. Light tanks is here. Medium tanks is down here for some reason. I think this might be one of my other mods screwing it up. Anyway, you've got types of engines that can decide, do you want your tank to go faster but use more fuel, or do you want it to have better reliability and use less fuel? Do you want petrol engines or diesel engines? We're definitely going to pick diesel engines. We're just not going to pick it just yet. So why don't we go ahead and pick mechanical computing like we were planning to pick. And then I think I also want to start going down the land doctrine tree, unless I have something else specific to do. A lot of the stuff is researched for you ahead of time, which is something that always drove me crazy. Like, when you got a major power, you can't even start building basic units from the start of the game. So I'm glad to see that. We've also got pack artillery, regular artillery, and heavy artillery. Pack artillery, if we can take these about here. Pack artillery is less powerful. You get less soft attack from it, for example, than regular artillery, and even less than heavy. But pack artillery has weaker penalties in harsh terrain, especially in mountain terrain. Movement's only -5, attack is +10. In mountain terrain here, it's -25 movement for regular artillery, and no bonus at all. And for heavy artillery, mountain is -30 movement. So pack artillery is specifically designed for rough terrain, and it's weaker, it's smaller, it's lighter, easier to move, but it has those drawbacks. Motorized pack artillery have the same statistics, but they allow you to go faster, I believe. And then pack artillery support companies, same idea. So, and heavy support either comes in semi-motorized, which requires some trucks, you have some decrease in move speed, or fully motorized and no decrease or less of a decrease in move speed per equipment. So instead of having move speed be a minimum, the way that this works is heavy stuff slows you down per piece of equipment. So, heavy artillery, I think comes in like 12s. So 12 times 0.4, whatever that winds up being, will slow you down that much or something like that. Maybe it's 8. I don't remember exactly what the deal is. Or maybe it's just per battalion. We can actually tweak around with the designer later. But that's the idea behind these 3 types of artillery. Regular artillery is, pack artillery, by the way, almost as expensive as regular artillery. It's the only reason you'd build this is if you wanted to get that a lighter terrain unit, which is something that I miss in the base game. I miss not having that. And heavy artillery requires a lot of steel. The support companies are all here. Here's also where the scout planes are. Just kind of hiding in this one for some reason. And then infantry have your basic infantry equipment, basic radio equipment that can be improved over time. Geez, at +50 for the HQ. You've got horses and field equipment, which, if it's not motorized, will require this extra equipment in order to get to its best. Hello, Tyler. This is the Hearts of Oak mod, is what it's called. So then you've got AT, then you've got entrenchment abilities, and then you've got your standard special forces, which require special forces equipment. So it really kind of makes the economics of building the right equipment a little bit more interesting in this mod. So, that all having been said, what are we going to do first? What I would like to do first is make sure that when we're done building whatever the default ships are, we have the ability to crank out something useful for a ship, because we don't have tier 2 depth charge throwers. We don't have even regular passive sonar, much less active sonar. We don't even have improved airplane catapults. So that's what we're going to start doing, is researching these small things so that when we need to put some ships together, we'll actually have some decent, useful things to do it with. So I think the other thing we might consider is this the... Yeah, this gives us access to the first radar, but we'll wait a little bit on that because it's in 1937. We'll get the rest of the stuff here that should have been done in 1922, but apparently we kind of forgot about it. Sorry, forgot about it. Now we're going to go in, and while I'm remembering that, we're going to change all of these to 1. Oops. Because they're already partly done, it doesn't make sense to cancel them and waste all that. We'll have at least an extra ship. But we're going to make sure that as soon as they're done, they're done. And then we can make whatever we want. We'll probably refit some of the basic ships before we go too far. Okay, so that's done. Now we got to figure out what we're going to do with the military factories. Our dockyards are well apportioned, but our military factories are not. The problem is I don't know how I'm going to build my divisions yet, so I don't really know what I'm going to need. So I'm probably just going to spread this out amongst everything. We're probably going to get a little bit more on the support equipment. Radio equipment is going to be very necessary eventually. Let's increase the horse equipment a little bit. Special forces equipment, we're going to need that for the Marines that we want to build. Let's give them at least one more factory. Basically, military factories were doubled for all intents and purposes, if not tripled. So maybe 1 or 2, 2 or 3 might be equivalent to having 1 on it before. I do want a lot of light. You know what I also want? I want a little bit of heavy artillery. I don't think that's actually being produced here. So we've got pack artillery, light artillery, and heavy artillery. Those are the 3 types. I don't feel like we need to do anti-air or anti-tank just yet, because China's just not going to have those, really. Now, what did I see? There was a tank that was... Pre-war light tank. No, we want to upgrade that to a regular light tank. I don't know why it was starting with that production. Infantry trucks is good. Heavy artillery, I'm going to have at least 2 on. What I would like to use the heavy artillery for, because its main drawback is its movement speed. So what I would like to use the heavy artillery for is every island defense force and every border force, every defense force, that's not going to be moved. Like, it's stationary to guard against invasion or guard against the Soviet Union. That is going to have a heavy artillery regiment in it, or battalion, or whatever you want to call it. Because it gets me a lot better defense of these islands without having to have any major drawbacks, really. It's better than having a single regular light artillery battalion there. So I'm going to try to do that with my heavy artillery. Mostly put it in places that make it stationary. We're going to increase regular and light. Armored cars are okay. We're going to need a lot more on the tanks, if I remember correctly. We've got regular fighters. We got regular tactical bombers. Regular naval bombers and carrier fighters and carrier naval bombers. That's probably good, but we're going to need a little bit more. I want a base of 2 in everything. There should be nothing that's only got 1. 1 is too little. Full stop. I also know infantry equipment is going to be a problem, like it always is. Alright, I got 4 left to divvy up here. Let's give it to the equipment. And maybe tactical bombers. Because we're going to be using those before we use carrier stuff. That's going to come later on in the war. Okay, so we've apportioned all those out. We've got free civilian factories. Here's what I'd like to do. We've got a couple... Now, infrastructure is also interesting. Infrastructure cannot go above Building current max level limited by construction technology 3. So 7 is the max you can get. When you get to construction technology 3, it unlocks infrastructure level 8, this infrastructure level 9, and this unlocks infrastructure level 10. So for now, we have a few areas that have level 8 infrastructure, because that's just how it starts. So we're going to take advantage of that and put 15 civilian factories in there. Now we've got about 3 lines of factories, so we'll also put maybe a fuel silo and then a whole bunch of military factories. And when the fuel silo's done, we'll also build some dockyards, probably. Yeah, that seems like the right choice. So this is going to be done in March, and then the military factories will be going at full speed, and the dockyards will be coming slowly online. But the whole time, we'll be producing civilian factories because we're about to have to give away a bunch of them, a bunch of them in trade. A bunch of them. It's unfortunate, but it is an absolute ton. How many we got? 14. So let's get 16 dockyards so we can have a nice even... Let's do 17. Because part of the problem is I always want one dockyard on convoys. And I don't need them yet, but I'll want them later when they start getting sunk by submarines and things. Okay, so I think I've got that organized. I don't want any divisions in basic training yet because I don't think I have the equipment for the divisions I currently have. I have a lot of unassigned divisions. I have decisions available. We'll go back to the mod guide in a bit. This is an interesting one they've done here. Turkey, Afghanistan, Argentina, all the countries that were neutral in the war, major countries, like larger major countries, have this. So this mod makes it so Turkey can never join anybody. Argentina can never join anybody, etc. So I'm not a huge fan of that, but I guess they just want to make sure it goes a little bit more like history. Anyway, so that is one of the decisions. You can get rid of that if you want through this decision. Can't be undone. We're just going to leave it because I don't really want to mess with it. War propaganda, we don't need that. We've got the Naval Treaty. Now, here's the cheat on treaties thing. This is in the Vanilla 2. Dockyard construction speed plus 15% is real nice. It seems like it just costs 25 political power. Like, there's no real backlash against that. So we'll consider doing that. Air defense for cities is nice. If we have 50 spare political power at some point, okay. We'll add some extra anti-air and radar stations to our capital. Subsidies for the arms industry only works when we're at war, and it lets you convert civilian to military factories faster. I've never, ever wanted to convert a civilian to a military factory. Not once. Not even a little bit. Because as you get more military factories later in the war, as you're building more and more military factories, more and more of your civilian factories get sucked up into your consumer goods thing. Which is a mechanic I actually hate. I don't know if anybody else hates it. I don't mind the idea of the different, economy levels, and that consumers require some percentage of your civilian blah, blah, blah. But I hate that building more military factories necessarily takes away civilian factories from you. That's so enraging to me. And it doesn't work like that. The civilians aren't going, well, you built a new ammunition plant, so you have to stop building more airfields. What? No, I don't buy it. I don't like the way that's implemented. I get what they're trying to do, but I don't think it works well. All right. We'll come back to these when we actually have some decisions related to power that we can use. Decisions available. No template for heavy artillery. We know that. We don't care. Insufficient resources. That's a big problem, and that's where we're about to spend a ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous amount of our factories. Start with steel. Sweden has the steel for us, hopefully. Rubber. I'm not going to get all the rubber. I guess we can do it from the Dutch East Indies. Let's do one fewer factory for the rubber. And aluminum. Yugoslavia is a good place to get aluminum from. All right. Phone needs to stop freaking out here. All right. So that's taken care of. I think we're getting ready to start. Give me 25 seconds. I need to go take care of something. Okay. Somebody was counting and figured out that was 30 seconds instead of 25. All right. So we are ready to start pushing the go button here. So there we go. We have started advancing time. Now I've got to do a massive army and air and naval reorganization. It's always a thing that I kind of like, but also kind of hate if I've done it for the same country more than once. Because I kind of know what I want. Oh, we got free military factories already. Why did we get free military factories? We gained a military factory because... I don't know. We didn't just build one, did we? No. No, this has barely any speed on it at all. I don't know what gave us a free military factory. It's a mystery. But we're going to go ahead and put it with light tanks, I think. Yeah, light tanks. I know I'm always going to need a little more light tanks. Okay. So trade is okay. We're a little bit short on rubber, and I'm okay with that for now. Yes, rubber's fine. Decisions available. Let's see if... There we go. We can click the mod guide again. Okay, so we talked about production. We saw what that was. You know, number of factories is bigger, blah, blah, blah. We saw that technologies are different. Several countries have a unique armor and or air tree. We noticed that. Statistics are the same for any equipment of the same year. However, unique trees have equipment in different years. So the Germans might get access to, you know, medium tank 1, Panzer IIIs, a year earlier than other nations. But when the other nations get it, all the stats will be the same, is what it's saying. And the number of models have been increased to nerf tech rushing. Now you won't be able to have the best models in the game in 1938-39, like Fighter 3 Rush and Vanilla. Many techs have tooltips. Please read them to have a complete idea of their effects. So we know about that. Combat. This is one of the interesting changes to this game. Hello, local crack house and Sapior. It's called Hearts of Oak is the mod. Combat width is 120 plus 60 for each additional attack. 30 width being the most efficient. So you can do 20 width, you can do 30 width, and you can do 40 width. They've created a new type of company called the Headquarters Company. And they've increased the number of support companies that you can have. But the Headquarters Company's main thing is it has a buttload of organization in it. So when you add the Headquarters Company to a small division... Remember, organization is an average of all the companies and battalions in the division. So if you add a division HQ company, it drastically increases the organization. If we were to eliminate this, it reduces organization by 5. That's a pretty big number. That's 1/8-ish of the organization here. Maybe 1/7. That is a lot. So that's the purpose of the HQ company. And if you recall, the HQ company was going to get... where was it? It's actually over here, right? Here. Division HQ companies gets an extra 50 organization helping to drag up that average more. But if you have a Division HQ company... in a much larger division, like a 40-width division, it can't drag the average up as much. So that results in if equipped with an HQ company, 2 20-width divisions have much more organization than one 40-width division. However, the 40-width will still deal more damage due to game mechanics. So 40-width divisions still hit harder, but no longer do they also have as much, or some cases more, organization than 20-width divisions. And it's all because they added that HQ company that drags up the organization the smaller the division is. Air combat is more lethal, however, differences in numbers is less important than quality of the planes. SS and Red Guard battalions are better in every way to their counterparts, but are more expensive and use Special Forces cap. Non-motorized unit speed is dependent upon horses. The only exceptions are Marines and Paras, which use special equipment instead of the horse equipment, and bicycles, which is support equipment. So that is all the combat changes, and we'll come back to the division designer in a bit. And then the theaters. There are special mechanics added to the game to represent each of the theaters and how they played out. So Germany versus the USSR. They can declare via a decision. They can declare war. The Germany will then have time-limited bonuses, whereas the Soviets get malices, get progressively removed via decision or event. So they're trying to create the historical result of the Soviets learning more about fighting World War II while fighting the Germans, but being very bad at it at the beginning because of the purges and all the other things. And the main game has a sort of... The purge is supposed to represent that, but it doesn't always work right. If you purge early enough, then the purge can be gone by the time Barbarossa really starts, and it kind of screws things up. But so they kind of hard-coded into a decision that gives Germany a bunch of bonuses, and the Soviets get malices, but they get progressively removed over the course. USSR can also launch a winter offensive via decision, whereas the Germans can in the summer. That gives them bonuses in those respective months. So they tried to give a little bit more nuance to the history of that theater. Now, in the war with China, if China ever reaches a 50% surrender progress, a truce will be signed giving Japan the Chinese coastline. Japan can declare again via decision after Danzig. We have a national focus to that degree, and China could declare anytime after 1940 if they want to start the war up again. But there's sort of a peace, a potential peace in China if we want it, if we can get it. Island hopping mechanic. When we go to war with the United States, having control of islands gives your side bonuses and the other side penalties, which is very interesting. And finally, Pacific countries capitulation. If the British, Far East, Australia, Dutch East Indies, or Philippines capitulate to the Japanese, U.S. will get a malice against the European Axis. This was done along with island hopping to force the U.S. to fight Japan. Makes a lot of sense, and I think it was aimed more at multiplayer games than... That's actually a problem in a lot of games. Cataclysm is a board game that has that same issue. They try to figure out, well, the way that the game mechanics are set up, the U.S. gets a lot more points and value for just going into the Europe and ignoring the Pacific. They can win that way. So this is, all the different things that they decided to put in this little guide thing here. So, that all having been said, let's remove those decisions so we don't have to worry about seeing them again. Oh, this is Army and Navy experience. We start with 50 of each here, thanks to that decision, so that we can more easily adjust the designs right from the start. So, we don't care about mod guide, hide mod decisions. There we go. Okay, so those are all out of the way. We have the inter-service rivalry stuff, which is actually affected by some of the choices we make in this tree. When we start going down the Strike South doctrine, this is going to strengthen the Navy inter-service rivalry. Then, again, it's going to strengthen it where? One of these two, I think. Here. Either of these is going to strengthen the Navy one. Then, is there any others? This one, again, is going to strengthen Navy one. So, you got to be careful, because at some point, you might want to push it in favor of the Army at the beginning of the scenario, and then later in favor of the Navy, because the Army needs to get early equipment to fight China, but then you need the Navy to fight against the USA and the Western powers. So, anyway, we're not having any design decisions, so let's go ahead and keep it at speed 2 while we redesign all of our armed forces to be in our own image. All right, did we get 60? We got 60. That's how many they start with. Okay. We got to put them in a thing. Bring them all over here. And this is part of the mod. They added some, you know, stuff to make it a little bit more interesting. We're going to make this our training division, making it green for green troops, brand new troops. And what do we put here for training? What do we use for a training symbol? I don't know. Nothing here works really well for a training symbol. Let's just use, you know, these guys for leveling up. We're leveling up infantry. Sure. Infantry and armor. There we go. So now we know we've got the training army, and we need to go in and adjust some division designs. So we've got a couple of options. Let's call this our infantry division. We want this to be our mainline division for fighting a ground war. It needs to be able to hold territory, but also take territory. Honestly, one of the things that surprised me about this mod is how many of these divisions are just well designed. This is actually really good. You've got your classic, you know... In fact, artillery only has two width in this mod, but it has a lot less organization, I think, to help kind of offset it. I'm not sure 100%, but I know that it has less something, because it's only 2 width now, instead of being 3 width. So that's not a disadvantage from artillery anymore. So I think 8 and 2 is perfect, and I think what they've got here is good too. Regular recon company, regular logistics, engineer. There's really nothing else I'd add at the moment. We don't need a maintenance company or anti-tank or anything else like that. I think this is perfect the way that it is for a mainline infantry division. So we're just going to rename it. That's all we're doing with it. But here's a light infantry division made of light infantry battalions. What's the difference? Well, let's find out, huh? Shall we? Let's go ahead and remove everything just for the hell of it and look at what the difference makes. So, right now, using light infantry battalions, I'm getting rid of this too, using light infantry battalions, you can see we actually get a bonus to movement, attack, and defense in every type of rough terrain. Jungle, marsh, forest. Except mountains and hills. That's for mountaineers. But just rough terrain. Forest, jungle, marsh. You get, let's see, 10%, 5%, 10%. And I think all of them in urban gives just an extra 25% defense. Now, if we go ahead and change this over to a regular infantry instead of a light infantry battalion, what changes? Well, now it's only 5% movement speed, but it's still the same attack, and it's only 5% defense. So the light infantry gets better movement and defense in forests, jungles, and marsh, is I think the main thing. It looks like they even get better defense in cities. But what else changes if you go to a light infantry battalion? You can see here, oh, here's all the differences right here. So the recovery rate goes down, defense goes down, breakthrough goes down, soft attack, everything goes down, but supply use actually goes down, which is good. Production cost goes down. That's very important. Manpower, training time, the amount of equipment you need. So light infantry battalion does exactly what it says in the tin. It's lighter so it can move faster through rough terrain, and it costs less in terms of training time, equipment, and manpower, but it also gives you less stats in almost every category. But the lower supply use is also very valuable. If you're in a place with a lot of crappy terrain, you probably are also in a place with really bad supplies. That having been said, I don't like this design for a light infantry division. I want a better one. I think the game is right now using this as our garrison template. Let's take a quick look at that. Yeah, it's using that as a garrison template, which I'm not a fan of because I'm going to build a better garrison template right now. We're going to duplicate this cavalry division and call it garrison division. And what we're going to do is take this away. We're going to take this away. Did I hit? Yeah, I did duplicate already. We're going to add the military police. And we're going to take away 2 of these. And now we've got a suppression of 9.6. We'll go ahead and save that one. Pull this up, and you can see our garrison division costs only 89 per suppression point, whereas the default light one costs 103 per suppression. Ours costs only 458 manpower per suppression. The original one costs 652. So we've made a much more efficient option here for suppression, which we basically need for China and or for Korea and Japan at the moment. But now we're done making a garrison division. We can change this one to be a not garrison division. And it's also not going to be a bad division either. They're not going to get last dibs on the equipment because this isn't worse. It's not going to be a lower, weaker version of our infantry division. I mean, technically it is, but it's going to be specialized for use in specific situations. Low supply areas, areas without with a lot of rough terrain. So I think we want to definitely use some pack artillery. And that's interesting. 18. I'm missing one, aren't I? Yeah. There we go. So now we've got 8 infantry and 2 pack artillery. That's a decent place to start. We might make it bigger later. We also don't need military police. That's definitely going to go. We probably want to add a division headquarters because it pretty significantly increases our organization. Now, because this is going to be in rough terrain, we probably, well, I almost want a field hospital on everything because Japan is going to have a problem with manpower eventually. So, and I like the fact that field hospital also gives you the experience loss reduction because, man, is it hard to keep experienced troops in this game. Basically never get any veterans unless they have been absolutely crushing their opponents. There's no way to get veterans in this game, which is so bizarre. They have to stomp their opponents to become veterans, except if you've stomped your opponents and it's been easy, you haven't really learned anything, have you? No real good lessons. So, these guys are going to want to be a regular recon company which uses horses, because I think if we try to use armored cars, that's going to use a lot more fuel and just a lot more supply. So I don't think we want that. We're going to stick with a regular recon company because we do want to use recon companies in basically everything. Now, what else do we bring? A logistics company does seem pretty valuable. A motorized logistics company actually reduces supplies even more, but it uses more fuel. Oh, it actually uses less fuel. Fuel usage minus 5%. A motorized logistics company uses transport vehicles. If we switch that out for this, we would get less... Oh, supply usage. Yeah, a motorized logistics company is just flat better if you can afford to get the transport vehicles in every single division. Well, I'm not sure we can just yet. Not for our light infantry. Maybe our tanks and stuff, but a regular logistics company will do just fine for them. And I don't think they need anything else. I don't think they need a maintenance company. An engineer company does help you move faster through rough terrain, and it also increases breakthrough, which is one of the things they're kind of weak on. Actually, they're high on. I don't know where they get all this breakthrough from, but okay. We'll go with that. That's a decent light infantry division right there. Done. Now, this one has an armored car for a symbol, which is a little weird to me. But the main thing that's missing, and you can see the max speed... I think is it reduced by these guys? No, that doesn't reduce it. It's the armored cars? I don't know. It's not nearly as fast as the default game. It has you like 12 kilometers an hour or something with you know, trucks. So it uses armored car recon. Now, as opposed to light tank recon. Light tank recon would significantly increase the armor, but lower the reconnaissance. Armored cars are actually the best kind of recon, but they don't give you the armor that comes with them. Instead, I think I want to just add one light tank battalion, because it gives us that armor increase by 10.9, up to 10.9. That will make us able to resist the piercing on pretty much all of the Chinese forces with this. It makes our organization go down a little bit. It increases our breakthrough a significant amount, just having that one armor. Now, what if I changed this to light tank also? We would get a little bit more breakthrough. Our armor would go up a tiny bit. That could make the difference between having a, having somebody pierce and somebody not pierce the armor, but probably not the Chinese. Probably not. More importantly, it lowers our reconnaissance, and I want our tactics to be able to defeat theirs. So I think we're going to leave it on armored cars. Our hardness is good. I do think we need a maintenance company. If we're going to have all of this very expensive equipment in here, we definitely should have a maintenance company. We don't have any artillery, so maybe we should have at least a regular light artillery support company. That would slow us down from... Actually, we are slowed because we had the maintenance company. The maintenance company slowed us down? No, that wasn't it. Oh, the light tank battalion slowed us down, actually. Which is very interesting. Light tanks... Yeah, light tanks... The current version of light tanks is slower. Let's see what happens if we were to upgrade to the next level of light tank. So the current Type 95 doesn't even... Yeah, it's 6.6 is the max speed. What about the next one? There you go, 7.2. So, yeah, I'm happy with adding the light tank, the maintenance company, the regular artillery battalion. Can you add a heavy support? What does the heavy support look like here? A little bit more soft attack, more supply uses. I think we're going to go with regular support artillery. We don't need quite as much soft attack because if we have the armor advantage, we'll do bonus organization damage and stuff. Our breakthrough is nice and high, so they won't take that much in terms of damage coming back at them. I kind of wish I had more soft attack here. Motorized artillery battalion increases soft attack by 28. And get rid of that, get rid of this. That looks a little better. It requires 48 artillery, though. And it lowers our armor. Not by much, though. Yeah, having these extra doesn't lower it too much. And then is there anything else we wanted to add here? Field hospital, definitely. Logistics company, motorized logistics company. We definitely need to lower the supply use as much as possible here, because this is going to use a lot of supplies. So the weight is going to be problematic, and the fuel is going to be problematic. All right. I think that's our finishing touches on this. Now, we're at 26. That's not optimal. This helps our armor a little bit and our breakthrough. Do we want to do something like this for a 30? I think that looks nice. It requires a lot of light tanks. We're not going to be able to make a lot of these because we made it 30 width. But whenever it appears, it's going to punch a pretty big hole. So, what do we use to mark this occasion? It's basically a mechanized force because it's got a lot of... or motorized force, I guess. But it has tanks with it, so I would call that a mechanized force. It's kind of mixed in together. It's got the armored car by default. So let's use the red one because it's our sort of elite mechanized division. It's not a full tank division because we don't have a lot of armor in it. A lot of it's armored cars and infantry, but still good. All right, I'm happy with that one. We've also got the Marine Division, of course. Might just call it SNL Special Naval Landing Force. Sure. Get a little historicity in here. So, for the Marines, we definitely want a field hospital. Can't just let them go out there and not get veterancy when they're elite Marines. It's a 20-width division. That's not a bad division, but I think we want them to have some pack support, pack artillery, to give them a better punch. And then I think we also want them to have a logistics company, because if they do naval amphibious invasions, they might be stuck behind enemy lines for a little while. Or at the very least, they're going to be in low supply areas because we don't control a lot. We know that's coming. They shouldn't have the trucks, though. This is probably the best. I think that's a good division for our special naval landing forces. And I think that's it for now. I don't know what this is. I don't know that we want to make anything quite like this. Maybe when we get a medium tank division. This seems kind of like a waste, right? Like, what is the point of this? It can't move quickly. It has a little bit of breakthrough, but not much in the way of soft attack. Like, if I'm going to put tanks somewhere, I want it to be inside that mechanized division, so it has not only the penetration power, but the ability to move quickly after penetrating. So I don't think we're going to mess with this yet. We might make something out of it in the future, but we're not going to build any of them. Okay. Now that we've got our division straight, we've got to figure out what we're actually going to do with all of them. So, we're also going to find out just how weak we are in equipment. Oh, and these cavalry divisions, I don't think I want them. Meh. What's the point? What's the point? They go a little faster than infantry, but they have weak attack, low combat width. I don't want it. I don't want it to be a thing that exists. So we're going to change those cavalry divisions over to something else. Probably regular infantry divisions, but... Oh. Can I double-click on... Oh yeah, to select all. That's easier. I've forgotten that. Alright, we're going to change those into regular infantry divisions. Alright, so everybody's moving in the correct place. We now have either regular infantry... We also have those weird... We're going to change these weird tank divisions into our mechanized division instead. Okay, so... Let us see what there is to see with our logistics now. Not enough transport vehicles, not enough light tanks. Transport vehicles especially are way behind the curve. So let's infantry trucks. Let's add an extra 2 factories to that once they become available. Decisions available. Cheat on the treaties. Massive propaganda investment. Butter not guns. We're not going to do any of those because I think the first thing we should do is grab a silent workhorse here to increase our political power and give us more options. Here's another difference the mod does. It splits up research and production. So this is a design company like you're used to. It will increase the statistics of a unit that is designed, that is researched while this design company is happening. But this design company actually slows down the research speed because you're making the tank better. It's taking longer to design it in that better way. Whereas armor research here in the theory section increases all research speed across the board and increases armor research speed by 15%. So that's kind of true of all of these naval research and theorists. This is also, they've changed it so that before you could only get like a land-based military theorist. Now they've added the ability to get naval theorists or increase naval speed, research speed. So it's naval doctrine increase or naval research speed increased. And then same thing here for air. And then over here you get material research speed. Do you want to get increased speed for artillery and rockets, increase material speed for weapons and equipment, or increase research speed for motorization. But any of these increase all of your research speed across the board by 1%. So that's really valuable to get all of these eventually. And then your industrial designer, oh boy, these are real valuable. And I think I took too long to notice it. Compliance gain, no thank you. Just plain industrial research. So this increases, fighter production cost reductions. Oh, I got a scared puppy here because of the thunder outside. So fighter cost reductions, that's pretty good. But I think right now, what I want, consumer goods factories reduction is actually fantastic. That will help us a lot. Let's do that for 150 after we get the silent workhorse. And now we need a new national focus. I think we're going to go here, unlock the political advisor captain of industry to help increase the speed at which we build civilian factories. Because what I'd really like is 3 full lines always working. One constantly building civilian factories, one constantly building military factories, and another one that we can use for whatever we want. Naval factories, fuel silos, etc. Now, one of the cool things about the mod is they have a lot of national spirits. State Shintoism, division recovery rate is increased. Max factories in a state, massively increased. And I don't know where the hell that... Whatever, I'll take it. Zabutos, Zaibatsus. This is like the aristocracy. Is that the right... essentially, the aristocracy. They cost us some consumer goods, cost us some political power, but they're helping increase our military and civilian factory speed. It's okay. Our costs for changing the laws, they like to, mess with that. However, inter-service rivalry, the Army and Navy famously did not get along together at all, so because they're both researching air doctrines, the Army's Air Force and the Navy's Air Force, air research time is lower, is reduced by 10% because they're duplicating effort instead of sharing. Militarism increases our war support. Civilian factory construction speed, however, is lower. And massive fuel reserves. Our fuel capacity is much higher than it normally would be because Japan planned for the fact that they were going to be embargoed eventually. And we can increase the speed at which fuel silo construction speed is built. Inter-service rivalry is currently balanced, but it can be adjusted by either the decisions that we take in this tree here or some of those national focuses we talked about earlier. We are a member of the London Naval Treaty signatory, and Hirohito gets stability of 50%. So, let's continue. The February 26th incident. A group of young Imperial Japanese Army officers with the goal of purging the government and the military leadership of their factional rivals and ideological opponents have staged a coup d'etat in the Empire of Japan. Although the rebels succeeded in assassinating several leading officials, they were swiftly brought down by the overwhelming opposition as the army moved against them. After a series of trials that saw most of the leaders of the rebellion executed for mutiny, the radical faction, Kadoha, lost its influence within the army. The period of government by assassination finally came to a close, and the military increased its control over the civilian government. Yeah, government by assassination is kind of insane. That affected one... Oh, here it is. The Kwantung Army Veto. Because we screwed up this faction, daily political power gain is minus 0.1. Army experience gain minus 50. War supports increased, however. And more importantly, as I mentioned before, I think this is what gave every single general reduced leader experience. Because the army is pissed. They crippled our upper echelon command with expansionist generals taking the initiative and seizing more land for Japan. So that'll go away only once we start actually getting in war with China. Anyway, so the training army is waiting on quite a lot of this. It'll take over a year to build this many transports, and it'll take a little less than a year to build this many light tanks. Here's the thing about this. I wish it would do the math for you and take into account the fact that this proficiency is going to increase. You don't know if I'm researching other things that will increase the cap, so that's fine. You don't have to take that into account. But if it just took into account the fact that this efficiency is going to increase over time, that would be great. But it does not do that. Okay. We're going to get the last piece here. Then we're going to maybe take a look at naval designs shortly after that. So, if we know what we need is trucks and light tanks, which guys can we train that do not require trucks and light tanks? Now, this requires trucks, probably for the artillery battalion. Or is it the HQ? HQ requires 20 transport vehicles. And the field hospital requires the other 15. So, it might be a bad idea to try training any new divisions until we can get that fixed. Oh, you know what I don't have? I don't have a defense division. That's what I need. It's probably going to be a light infantry division because they require less equipment. So let's duplicate this. And instead of the pack artillery, we're using heavy artillery. And instead of giving them logistics company, they don't need that. A recon company, I mean, if they're getting a naval invasion, do they need a recon company to help deal with the tactics? Maybe a basic, maybe a regular one. Put it over here just because I like a better position. I do want them to have an engineering company because it increases their defense and it increases their entrenchment by 4. That's good. If they're going to be defending, we do want that. That seems like a pretty mean-looking defense division. That is a lot of soft attack for a small width division. Its organization is a little low. It could get beat by sustained attacks. I wish I could increase the organization. But I think the only way to do that is fully change everything into, like, infantry battalions. Each one would bring the organization up by 1. 1, 2, 3. Maybe we give them 1... Is this a corps? Is that what I'm thinking this is? I think so. I think this would be a corps, this would be a corps, this... No, within a division. These are battalions. So that increases our organization by an extra 5. Well, extra 4, actually, but... 5.4? I think that's good. It needs a little bit more equipment, but it has more staying power. And the last thing we need is to allow these islands to fall at the enemy hand. So this is our defense division. We've got to give it a new look. I've always preferred these for defense divisions because, it, you know, they're like, oh, they're on an island defending. I like the way that looks. Oh, and they will get the last pick of the equipment. Okay. So that's good. Now, that all having been said, we don't actually have any, because we won't need any for a while. But we could start building them. Very slowly at first, and eventually ramping up. Okay. So I think we've finished reorganizing the army. And now we're going to move on through at speed 4. The Navy's going to get its own reorganization, so will the Air Force. The U.S. Congress passes the Neutrality Act. Let the giant sleep. That's a weird graphical issue, huh? I wonder, I haven't actually looked at my video options. Yeah, they're all pretty high. Alright, so we're going the Manchurian Project, and one of the things, by the way, I do appreciate, because they made such a massive tree, they basically made most of these only 35 days to go down. These ones are 70, but most of the other ones are 35. Here's 70, actually. 35, 35, 35, 35, mostly 35 across the board here. So this one gives 2, this one gives 4. So we'll go ahead and get the 4 first. Ay, ay, ay. That is not supposed to be on. There we go. Alright, so what time is it here? It is 4 o'clock, so we'll go for another half hour today. I know we didn't get much accomplished except going over the basics here. Alright, so we finished that fuel silo. Once we get to 150 again, we'll get that Captain of Industry. Or whatever the other one was. The Consumer Goods Factories is real good. Alright. The Manchurian Project is complete. Let's get the extra 4 civilian factories here. And after we get the 8 civilian factories, we will probably consider going down one of these that will give us even more civilian factories, but also some military factories. So this is a choice we have to make. Challenge the Zaibatsus will give us 4 dockyards and 2 military factories. Guiding them, will give us 4 dockyards and 2 military. And challenging them gives us 2 dockyards and 4 civilian factories. Huh. Which is an interesting difference. Military factory and civilian factory speed and dockyard construction speed all increase, but military factory gets the biggest boost. Factory output 10%. Now these guys, dockyards get the biggest boost, as opposed to this side is about military factory increase. This is dockyard increase, so this is more towards the naval side. We do get a little bit of our political power back each day. This increases dockyard output a lot. 15% is no joke. And dockyard construction speed goes up by 15%. So factory output by 10% is also really good. So really what it comes down to is I like both of these, but let's see what you get when you go down them. This requires challenge the Zaibatsus. It gives us more military factories, and this one gives us military and civilian factories. Civilian factories are just eventual military factories anyway. They're just going to be used to construct military factories, so it's good. So this actually changes your economy law to total mobilization, which you could do, but not unless you were at war. So this allows you to change your economy law well before you get into a war. But that gives your population minus 3% population available. And what's the other thing it does? It replaces militarism with shogunate militarism, which increases war support and military factory speed, but lowers civilian construction speed by 10%. The opposite here, this doesn't go so far as to get to total war economy. This one goes to war economy, which in this game lowers your recruitable population by 1. And does a bunch of other negative things, including civilian factory construction speed goes down by 5%. So we might do this eventually, but might give it a little time to increase our civilian factories before we get too far. It also changes militarism to Showa militarism, which civilian factory construction speed goes way up. So there you go. And then Supremacy of Technology increases weapon and equipment research speed and armor research speed, and we get a free research slot. Wow, that's crazy. This one increases division recovery rate, which is already good, and increases division attack by 10% and division defense by 10%. That is also fantastic. I think we're going to take the guide Zaibatsus. So after we do this and this, we're going to jump over to guide the Zaibatsus, get a research slot, and nationalize the war industry. Those ones are all definitely high on my priority list. At that point, we'll decide where to go next, but I think it's going to be one of these has more military factories here. So this might be the tree we go down next. And then from there, we'll see where we are. All right. So we've got our units over here. Passive sonar has been finished. I would like to research destroyer hull for 1936, but here's the thing about that. I've got a couple of options when it comes to making my ships. What I like to do is I like to make super battleships. Like, I recognize that carriers were the thing in World War II, and I get it. But I just love the romanticism of these... I just love the scale of these giant frickin' guns and this massive armor, this huge thing plowing through the ocean. I just love it. So what I usually do is I make my carriers a sort of fighter superiority role, as opposed to the main thing I use to sink enemy ships. And I know it's not necessarily optimal, and Hearts of Iron makes it a little bit more possible with things like the fleet in being, as opposed to base strike. So this tries to make it possible, like, well, if a faction used their carriers just for air superiority and only brought fighters and used their battleships to actually do the damage, then maybe it would look something like this. You know, Grand Battle Fleet, which battleship organization, blah, blah, blah. So that's the way I like to go. That being said, and it brings us back to these designs, when I design my battleships, I want to use the Battle Fleet designer, because it increases armor and heavy attack like a lot. But it makes your screening ships weaker at sub-detection. What? What? No. No, that's not what we want. The Pacific Fleet designer is pretty much the same as it used to be. This is all about aircraft carriers, deck size increased, range increased, all your capital ships get their range increased, blah, blah, blah. So this is a possibility for max range, but I can't use it yet. I can't. I have to choose the special option over here, and they're against each other, right? This is a battle fleet. This is the Pacific Fleet, sorry. This is the battle fleet one. I want the battle fleet one for my battleship, but that means I can't use the Pacific Fleet designer for my screens. So even though I like increasing the max range of my screens, can't be done. So what are our other options? The Coastal Defense Fleet screens reduced production costs, but way lower max range. No, 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 no. That's like something that China takes. I don't even know why it's available here. Why would you... Max range minus 50%? You're crazy. Whereas this one looks perfect. Escort Fleet Designer. This is what I want my destroyers to have. Extra sub-detection, greater max speed, and greater max range. Yeah, the production cost goes up a little bit, but the benefit is that I will be putting a weaker engine in that thing because I don't need the speed most of the time. And destroyers are actually pretty low on production costs in the first place. So an extra 10% on destroyer, maybe it's an extra week for the destroyer to be produced, maybe a little less. But for a battleship, that's an extra 3 or 4 months, potentially, depending. So we're going to want to get this before we research our naval destroyers. So, that having been said, what do we do next? I think we go land doctrine and start down this tree, because we do want to at least get down here before we start that war in China. Might as well start now. Yeah, we'll use all the radios, sure. Except the common turn radio. No, thank you. Alright, so Speed 4 is trucking us along. These guys have almost got all their equipment now. We can now modify government to bring in... What do we want? This was going to unlock... Oh, this Captain of Industry was specifically for Manchukuo, wasn't it? Not for me. Oh well. Consumer goods factories increased. I don't think I like that. So I think what I'm going to take is that industrial concern... Sorry, the industrial research specialist, Yasuda, that lowers consumer good factories. That's nice. Yeah, we don't get any research speed increases, but that 3%, I think that's big. That gives me like an extra 3 or 4 civilian factories working on this here. which is basically exactly where I want to be. So these dockyards are taking quite a while. It looks like August 1st, March to August. That is really long. But that's partly because of the London Naval Treaty signatory, so we should definitely cheat on that when we get the opportunity. What does it cost us to cheat? 50? Yeah, we're going to cheat to get 15% increased dockyard speed. That'll at least partially offset what we've got going on there. Abandoning the treaty would get rid of the 25, but at least this gets us 15% increased dockyard speed. There we go. We've cheated on the treaty, which has now opened up the Strike South area for us, so we'll eventually start looking into this. Naval War College. Air experience gain increased. Air experience gain. Air wing training experience gain. Battle cruiser training experience gain. Everything gets faster. Everything air and naval gets faster. All our advisors in naval research, naval chief of staff, and military high command will become available at a reduced cost. Ooh, that's cool. Basic worker skills is done. I don't want to go any deeper than these right now. We don't have heavy fighters, but I'm not certain we need them at the moment. Close air support isn't even available until 1937 for us. But we already have close air support carrier fighters. Go figure. We could try to get scout planes, which are available now. Diesel engines. This is what I want. More reliability and less fuel used is best. Yeah, no, we'll sign the treaty. Just don't look over there. Now, we know we probably want to prioritize steel for guns, but it'll lower our dockyard construction speed a bit. But we know that when we start going in the Strike South doctrine, it's going to completely tip the balance in favor of the Navy. So probably starting out with a little bit of Army prioritization will help us in China. So I think that's where we go first. It'll also give us 4 military factories. Pretty nice, pretty nice. And where do we put them? Ethiopia's gone. Well, let's put 1 into trucks, 2 into trucks, and then 1 more into fighters. We know we're going to need a lot of fighters. Well, we don't actually know that, do we? The Popular Front is triumphant in France. Italy proclaims their empire. Wish I could just proclaim an empire. That'd be nice. Alright, so now we're going down here to get a bunch of civilian, naval, dockyard, and military factories. We get 1 tactical bomber a month because we don't have the rubber for it. 1.6, 1.7 a month. Let's see. Oh, and because we got so many more military factories, now we've got to import a ton of extra steel. 3 more civilian factories down the tubes, which we bring down. We were just getting to a good number, and now, we had to sell it all on the market. Now here, we definitely want to increase our resource gain efficiency so we can get more steel from our own steel works. Do we also want to at least get the ability to build synthetic oil refineries? I don't think we're going to use it yet. We still got a lot of distance to go on those civilian, military, and dockyard facilities we want. So I'm going to say probably not. Maybe we can just get some of the basic equipment done here. Next up, we'll probably want to save our political power to get more of these research one options chosen. Like a military theorist. Maybe Yamashita. Gives us extra army experience gain. And better max planning. That's nice. Mechanical computing is done. I kind of want to get this. We are partway through. Let's get it. Depth charge thrower is done. Let's get the other sonar researched. How is our naval situation? Well, we still have quite a ways to go. Because we have not built any new dockyards yet. We're getting the first dockyard ready soon. Alright. We gained a bunch of dockyards there. That's good. And I think we want to get an extra research slot or civilian and military factories. Let's get that first. And we gained some extra military factories. Let's put one more on our infantry. Our support equipment is fine. Radio equipment is actually going to need to start ramping up. Because eventually we're going to need to get those researches that give everybody radio equipment, which is great for your organization and all the other things. But it is going to... we need a lot more stockpiled in order to take advantage of that. Meanwhile, we need even more steel. And let's get one more level of that. Spain has gone to war. Diesel engines are done. There's not a lot to research just now. Maybe some air doctrine. Yeah, we don't have any of these. Do we want... let's see. Battlefield support. Air support. Mission efficiency. Ground support. I'm always a big fan of battlefield support. Operational integrity is about using tactical bombers in all kinds of ways. At least that's what it says. But then if you look in here and it's like, nothing in here is specific to tactical bombers. Not at all. There's not one until you get here. Carousel bombing. And then that's not specific to tactical bombers. Yeah. There's nothing in here specific to tactical bombers, so I don't know why. I mean, this is the same in vanilla, by the way. There's like one or two things in here that's specific to tactical bombers. Everything else is like a different set of bonuses. And why? Why wouldn't you make them themed properly? But so this one is about, I would say, fighting enemy fighters. Because this gives you ace generation chances, interception chances. There's a little bit of ground support there, 10%. It's not the same as the 20% you get from here. Fighter detection. So this is for, like, the Battle of Britain, right? Air superiority. This gives you direct air-to-ground bonuses. Fighter detection, okay, that's there. But air support is direct ground benefit. This is direct ground benefit. Here's a little bit of ace generation and air superiority effectiveness, which is actually helpful on the ground as well. Air superiority and more agility. So you get, I think, front-loaded ground support benefits here. Whereas on this one, called strategic destruction, all about strategic bombing, you get no bonuses to strategic bombing for a long, long time. Now, does this even give you any naval bonuses? Not until down here, huh? It's just a different order. It's so dumb. Like, the land doctrine ones make a lot of sense. This one is about working with decent militaries that don't have enough money to really pay for mobile warfare or superior firepower. This one is about, militaries that are going to be operating in an area where fast-moving, mechanized, and armored forces can really make the difference. This one is about, I don't care where I'm fighting, I'm shelling you with a ridiculous amount of artillery. And this one is about, I'm just going to take my time and be much more effective because I don't have to rush quickly. And this one is all about running, It's basically just for Russia and China. It's just for Russia and China. It doesn't benefit anybody else, really. But, and naval doctrines even have their own themes. But the air doctrines don't have it all. All that having been said, I'm just going to take this one. I don't know if this has been particularly boring, because I haven't really gotten anywhere. There's not been any drama. There's no fighting yet. But I like to take my time going through this stuff. 1936 Imperial Conference. Let's get some basic anti-tank weaponry. Oh, and we have the ability to modify the government. Motorized artillery research. Air research. Naval research or Naval Theorist. I think a Naval Theorist would be pretty good. Naval Doctrine Research Speed. Naval Aviation Planner. Increases reliability and base strike doctrine. Wait, I can't get this guy yet. We need to get the special thing. Okay. Tank research, we don't need it. So we could consider a material research like this one just to get, hey, 1% research speed on everything, plus artilleries get increased, or what do we want to be ahead on? Weapon and equipment, motorized, or artillery? Huh. That's an interesting question. But I think what I really want is to get Yamashita in charge of the Grand Battle Plan. Because max planning of 5% is pretty good. We're already increasing our max by a lot. So let's get the one research slot right there. We got free factories. Let's start producing more things. And then we'll see what we need and put the factories there. So how many of these mechanized troops do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's try building an extra 5 of them. Let's instead do 2 by 2. Well, actually, it looks like we definitely can't afford to do 2 by 2. So let's do 5 in this way. We can't even get these guys to go out yet because they don't have the heavy artillery. So that implies we need to definitely put a couple more to heavy artillery. In fact, double the amount that we're putting there. These guys are using light tanks and transport vehicles, which is our other bottleneck. I'm going to start training regular troops as well. And we're also going to put these guys to work. Having more Marines would be pretty good, too. I think I start with only the 1 there. So we'll build as many as we can build. Active sonar is done. Let's just take some of the cheap stuff that we're done here. Oh, we're waiting for 200 to modify the government. That's right. So once these guys get to full regular status, or they have a weird setup here too, huh? Once they get to veteran, whatever's the level after this, the one where they... Oh, there we go. It's experienced. Okay. So we can take a bunch of these guys and start forming armies. Because we didn't change them that much. That's why they were able to quickly become experienced. Okay. So that created 15. This is a basic army. We're going to call it our first army. Seems like a good play. We'll make yellow, brownish, sure. No, you know what? We're going to use warm colors for regular infantry and cool colors for regular infantry, and we'll use warm colors for our light infantry. That's how we'll tell them apart. So that's where we'll start there. That means these guys, the first army is going to be probably our best infantry army that we can make. So probably this guy. He's a 4, 3, 2, and 4, and he's an infantry officer. So he seems like a perfect pick. They all have the Kwantung Veto, unfortunately. And he's an infantry officer that could get guerrilla fighter, better reconnaissance, faster entrenchment speed, but his army size goes down. He can't carry 24 divisions if we do that. Let's hold off. I think there are better options for that later. Alright, speed things along as they continue to earn experience. It's draining our fuel. We can't even train our army, is a problem. Oh, I forgot to add... I'm going to train more of these guys. And honestly, I'll just maybe leave this on infinite, because it'll add an extra... it'll add an extra division. Do we want to make them, like, for real heavy hitters? Like this? Make them 30 width? What does that do? That increases their soft attack by a significant number. Their defense and their breakthrough. Yeah, I mean, if there are special forces, we don't just want them to land. We want them to land and then expand. Really, really work it. But if we make them 30, we can't have as many. Because our limit is what? 56, so we can only have 2 of these divisions. Assuming that we get to 60, right? 15 special forces. Battalions. Oh, I misunderstood. 15, so we could do 3, maybe 4. Yeah, I'm going to go with 4 as a decent number to start with. As we get more divisions total, we'll be able to get a few more. Hello, Commander Hale. Thank you. I will continue to provide these special explanations just for you, sir. All right. Yeah, we're going to try that. And what it means is we can only have 3 right now, but that's okay. It's going to take a long time to train them, and we've got a couple years still before we're going to need to start the invasion of China. Excavation 1 is done. We're going to go straight to construction. It's a little bit early, but I'd rather get to excavation 2 so we can maybe free up. Now, yeah, we got excavation 1 done, allows us to free up a couple of our... Oh, I did the wrong one. Oops. It allows us to free up a couple of our trade slots here and bring back those... Yeah, we've got almost 3 full lines of civilian factories. Almost. We gained some more military factories. What do we know now that we've got this? Heavy artillery is slow, but it's getting better. 224. 220. Wow, special equipment is a problem too. And 47. Carrier fighters. Very slow. Carrier naval bombers, very slow. Okay, carrier fighters, let's give them 1. I'm also going to add 1 to trucks and 1 to special forces equipment, so that when we get more factories, it'll go there. Oh, we've got our ready-to-build Yamashita. Oh, we need the old guard complete to get him. Crap. In such a case, an industrial theorist, captain of industry, is available. I did not see that. Armament organizer increases our production efficiency cap, factory output, and dockyard output. Well, that's pretty good, but I think I want the captain of industry. You know, maybe not. Resource gain efficiency is 5%. That's good. That's a tough one. I think I'll do this and try to build some refineries in the near future. And then, once we're ready, once we're ready to actually go to war, I'll probably want to switch over to this one right here and get the production efficiency increases as a slight way to boost our economy when we go to war, so that we can keep up with the attrition that comes from our equipment. That seems like a good plan. Captain of Industry will get us more civilian factories for more resources, etc. And eventually increases refinery. We're going to need refineries. That's coming. That's on the docket. Smoke generators. Speaking of which, let's also start here. Increases all other outputs. We gain an extra slot there. Now, let's go this way. Gains national spirit, infantry supremacy. Infantry equipment costs less, pack artillery costs less, regular artillery costs less. We're going to go over towards the old guard so that we can get Yamashito. Maybe we should start our naval doctrine right now with one of these slots. Infantry anti-tank is done. There's not much left to get on this except, and you know what? I might not have a lot of paratroopers, but getting transports to be able to do a little bit of supply relief, that's real nice. The ability to just say, I'm going to need more supply over here. Okay, you've got it. It doesn't add a lot. Maybe you get an extra 3, 4, but that can be the difference. That can be the difference. And this is our mechanized force. Now, who do we give to this force? A trickster engineer is our best general. And I do like that he's got 4 for logistics, or supply consumption. I don't know that there's anybody better than that. This guy is an inflexible strategist, so his defense and his logistics are increased. Reckless, his planning speed is increased. Armor officer. I never understood exactly how those work. If the game determines that there are enough panzers in your division that it's a panzer division, this guy gets more experience? Or does the game calculate down and say, okay, 10% of this division is made up of armored brigades, or 15% or whatever, so that is the part that's boosted? I've always been afraid of how to use these guys. Infantry leader's easy, because I've got plenty of things that are basically pure infantry. But the others I just don't know. Here's our Marine General, by the way. The guy has Invader. So 4-2-1-4. This is slightly different. He's got better defenses, and he's got Trickster, and he's got a 5. I feel like this is our guy. Yeah. Not only that, we can make him a Fortress Buster if we really wanted to, but I don't think we have to. So we'll just keep him right where he is there. And I need to change this. It needs to look good. Mechanized division looks like this, right? And what color do we want? Something that's not cold or warm. It's gray. Or like a white. Sure. Like a gray-white. Let's see. So our main infantry army needs a army group. And we need an army group leader. Fast planner. I don't know what samurai lineage does for them. I've seen that in a couple of them. Offensive doctrine. Logistics wizard. Huh. Yeah, you know what? This would be good to have. I mean, but the problem is he's an old guard, right? I like Logistics Wizard, though. Ugh. Even though he doesn't have Organizer, somehow he has Logistics Wizard. I feel like the main, like, Kwantung army, the army that has to go fight in China, would really benefit from this. But it would also benefit from an extra 5% attack. And this guy's got better options here. Org loss when moving. Maybe this should be the guy commanding my... No. We're going to go with this guy. He's just better. The old guard guy, logistics wizard, is great, but he's not good long term. If he was at least already a 4, then the old guard wouldn't be as important. But the fact that he's starting at a 2, you know what I mean? So this is our main field marshal. We can even give them some extra bonuses here. Org loss when moving, and a bonus of 5 to the attack. Well, this is not a defensive group, so I think we do want to make this an offensive doctrine here. And then these are not mutually exclusive. We could get both of them, but if we only had to get one, do we want extra 2% reinforcement rate? I think division recovery rate helps attacking better. Alright, so go with that. Yeah, I know, totally. And we'll leave it as the HQ thing, because, we'll move it to that one. It's the Army HQ, the big HQ. Okay. And we've got another one that's ready for switching over there. All right, now we're going to speed through here. Eventually we'll get into the Navy. In order to facilitate that, I'm just going to slow this down a little bit while I organize things. Let's go ahead and grab everybody, everywhere. Move them all to one naval base. Let's make it something like that one. Apparently we missed this fleet. Now did we get all of them? Nope, we missed these guys. So move them all over there, reorganize everything into the way that we want it, and then we'll be good to go. So now that we're getting closer to the old guard, we might save this up so that we can get Yamashita, or we could spend it on something. An industrial concern, factory and dockyard output by 10%. That's nice. Construction speed increased by 10%. That's also nice. Resource gain efficiency 15%. Wow. Ooh, support equipment and radio equipment reduction now. That's nice. They're all good. This one is a compromise. Construction increase, but also factory and dockyard, and industrial research speed plus 10%. That's a compromise between these two, basically. At this point, I'm going to go with this. Soon, before the war, hopefully, I want to switch over to the refinery concern, because I probably want to build a bunch of refineries while this guy is active, and then switch back to, like, Mitsubishi. But for now, that's a useful option. Because I do want to produce a bunch of equipment before this China war breaks out. But at the same time, I also need to produce a lot of factories. All right, so we've got 20. Let's get an 11 more here. The old guard will give us Yamashita. All right. Our light infantry army. Oh my god, we're going to have enough for 2. I think. No, 21 exactly. All right, so the light infantry army. Who's going to be leading that? The first light infantry army. I probably want 2 light infantry and 2 regular infantry. I don't know what I'll do with the last one. We've got 5 slots on this army general. Or field marshal. Bearer of artillery. Artillery attack plus 15%. That seems nice too. But we'd rather use that on real artillery rather than pack artillery. Because I think these guys have 2 pack artilleries, and these guys have 2 light artilleries. Okay. So not this guy. This guy's a panzer guy. I don't know if we're ever going to build a panzer army proper. I think this guy. You know what? I think our 1st infantry and our 1st light infantry armies should both be the best generals possible. So that's easy to remember. If I want to attack and succeed in an area, I use either the 1st infantry or the 1st light infantry. And then the 2nd of each of them will be weaker generals. So let's use this guy. All right. And we want to do the color situation here. So we'll also differentiate it. Light infantry armies can have Roman numerals instead. But we need to use warm colors. So how about this guy is more like that? Perfect. We can put him in the same HQ there. Oh, we actually have even more. 1, 2, 3. That's enough. That's 24. So he's done. We finally have our 1st Defense Division ready to go. So for the defenders that are going to be on the islands and all these other places, they would actually benefit from this bearer of artillery guy. But I think what I want... There was somebody I saw that seemed like it would be good for that. Not the invader. Wasn't there a guy with a lot of extra entrenchment? Or the potential to get a lot of extra entrenchment? Was that a field marshal? Might have been a field marshal. If anybody can get defensive doctrine, that's who I want in charge of this army. So let's look around and see if anybody here... This guy? No, it's field marshal. Okay, okay. Got it. So actually what I need for the main army, not the field marshal, but just the regular army, is somebody that's got decent capabilities. Doesn't need to have really good logistics. We can go with 2 for logistics. Here we go. This is a weaker guy, but he can still work well on defense. This guy, cavalry officer. Don't care about him. I'm going to probably want this infantry officer for something. But for now, trickster. Anybody else I'm missing? Not really. These guys are the dregs. Another guy with good artillery sense. No. We'll go with that 2. This cavalry officer. He's not going to get any cavalry. Sorry to say, buddy. But here's what he is going to get. He's going to get a field marshal. The old guard guy. Because he gets better max entrenchment. And I don't care about experience gain because this guy's only ever going to get experience when our islands are being invaded. So we don't care about that. And he's got really good defense. Not so great attack, but he's got really good defense. And most importantly, we can assign defensive doctrine to him to increase entrenchment by a fuck ton. An absolute ton. Okay. So, that all having been said, we need to figure out what kind of coloring here. This is the defensive army group. And this is our defensive army, which kind of is going to look like engineers, I think. I don't know what SOF stands for. I know what most... Militia... Maybe it's the militia army? No, this doesn't make sense. Garrisons. I made this for the training army. I don't know what all of these do. I'm going to do this one. Maybe I'm close to right? No, I'm probably not. Island garrisons. Now, what color should that be? This weird green. Like the water of the Pacific. The blue-green. Sure, why not? Now, your duties, should you choose to accept them, include the following. Guard forts, not air bases. Yes, naval bases. No to coastlines. That gets all of those. I think that's it. I don't know. Probably I'm going to put some up here, too, just in case the Americans get kind of sneaky about that. I did get Taiwan. Yeah. Okay. They only need 23 divisions to do that effectively. I'm going to want to give them, like, 46 just to make sure. But, it's a decent place to start, huh? The Marines need their own army. And we're going to give them that invader guy, who, by the way, has the ability to get either naval liaison to increase the shore bombardment bonus, or extra marine supply grace for 240 hours. That's insane. And it enables a naval assault plan. I like this a lot. And this is the mod, by the way, that's reducing the general's maximum number of armies he can have. But you know what? I'm totally okay with that because I'm not going to have that many Marines. So this general currently cannot have more than 18 divisions, but I'm probably only going to have like 8, maybe 8 divisions of Marines at my height. So he's fine. Where am I going to put him, though? Should he go with the main group? The main army group? Probably. Because that was a decent commander we put in charge of that thing. So I think he's the one we want. Alternatively, we could give them their own field marshal. What could we do special for this field marshal that would be different than the other one? Not much. I think... That one has charismatic. Fast planner is very nice. Yeah, I think the Marines probably go for now. Maybe we'll change it. And we got to give them the correct looking thing here. And they should definitely have dark blue. Not maybe that's a little too dark. For obvious naval situations here. And I think we are going to put them in charge, in with the main... We'll try to get 2 infantry forces. 2 light, 2 regular, plus a marine army, plus... The mechanized army is probably going to have its own army group, now that I'm thinking about it. So they'll use this guy. Orgloss when moving. That's actually perfect for the mechanized group. What can he get extra? He's already got offensive doctrine. Division recovery rate is also very good for mechanized. Ooh, he can also get organization first. That makes him really good. So maybe I put the Marines with him, actually. He's our special forces. This is our main army group. This is a defensive army group. I'm just going to do this to get him in... Oh. Really? Why is it putting it back in that order? I want the defensive army group to be on the bottom. Huh. It's weird how it does that. Anyway. A couple more units here. Finished. Oops. These 3 are going to go to my main infantry army there. Let's make this a little bit more clearly warm. There we go. Okay, now we got it. Oh my gosh. Ah, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These ones are all going to go to their own new army. This is the other light army group that we have here. Radio detection is done. We don't want the old guard guy. Can I just purge him? Just get him out of here. This seems decent enough. And this is going to go part of this, and it's going to be Roman numeral 2. Second Light Army. All right. Then we've got first, I'm just going to call it Light Army. I know what I mean. So here what we're missing is we've got one full infantry army. And we've got one full light army, and we've got more light army being created. So what we're missing is exactly 24 regular infantry. So what we could do is do this 6 times. Is there going to be enough time for that? Can we try to do it 4 times? Let's try to get 20 instead of 24. So we'll do 5 by 4. That will probably have enough time to do that in the next year and a half-ish if we build the equipment fast enough. And then what we'll need in terms of light is this will be 6. So we'll need another, let's say 12 minimum of these guys. So if we need 12, we can do that any number of ways, but I think we're going to do it 4 or 3 by 4. So what we have now queued up is what I hope to have actually constructed by the time we go to war with China. I don't know if we're going to get there, but we're going to try. Now, with that all being said, we've got a couple more things to do before we log off for the day. What else? It's 36 going into 37, so let's finish going down this to increase the production efficiency and production efficiency growth. Those are all good. And I think now we're going to have a total of 5, so we're trying to get 10 of these mechanized divisions. With all of that on the docket, transport vehicles are apparently the highest in-demand item. Heavy is actually taking 63 days, though. So let's put more transport vehicles, more special equipment, and more heavy artillery here. So more special equipment, heavy artillery, and we've already got 1 more truck. Let's do 2 more trucks. Okay, so now we know where our factories are going when they come out. We're almost ready to start looking at our Navy, because it's almost done completing the ships that were already on the docket. We're going to have to go through and change a lot of those things. But I think reworking them just to add a radar or, add, depth charges or something to ships that didn't already have them might be enough to bring them into line with where I want them to be. We're also going to need... So we're getting the old guard to get that guy, but what we're going to need to do is get... What was the one naval designer I wanted? Escort fleet. I can get this one whenever I want to if I want to research destroyers. Can do it. Okay. I'm going to call it there, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for tuning in today. Hello, Street Gaming. Hello, Craig. I'm sorry you're dropping in just at the end. We'll talk about the templates. I could show you real quick about... I don't know if you're asking about the infantry templates or anything like that. This is a mod called Hearts of Oak. So it has a little bit more interesting stuff going on in terms of... which I went over in the earlier video. If you want, you can back it up and take a look at that discussion. Which I did. I'm sorry, it's a long time. I don't look. Just skim through until you see me with a bunch of division designers on the screen. But at the beginning, I go over the mod itself and a lot of the main differences it is that I've been able to tell between the main game and this. So I'll be back tomorrow, 10:30. Today was a little bit later in the afternoon. But for now, I am out. Thanks for watching.